Welcome to part 1 of the alternate endings to my Earth live lesson that was originally over on Lizzie Daly's channel, but on the Galapagos Islands and on Charles Darwin. Now, I spoke about the waved albatross in the main talk, however there are 3 other animals I could have talked about. There was the Galapagos Finches, there was the Galapagos Mockingbird, and the Galapagos Tortoises. Through the next 3 short videos and clips, I'm going to hopefully explain the others and the other talks and a bit about their natural history. Now, in the first talk, I really wanted to talk about the Galapagos finch, or Darwin's finch. Now, the name Darwin's finch didn't really turn up about until the 1930s, which was some significant time after Charles Darwin had passed away. In fact, when he was out in the Galapagos, he didn't really take much notice of them. He collected them, didn't write the locations about where he collected, and then sent them back to London for his friend John Gould to sort out for him. Now, John Gould noticed that there were some patterns within the species and variations that he found, but he didn't know what they were, or confirm any of them, because he didn't have the locations of where he got them from, where Charles Darwin had originally caught them. So, he actually sent a letter out to Charles Darwin, who was still out floating around the Pacific, and said, "Could you send me some more, but this time attach the locations of where you caught them." And then Captain Robert Fitzroy sent back his specimens, which were labelled, the captain of the HMS Beagle, sent them back to London, where John Gould then had a look at these species and had a look at the patterns which were evolving. Now, the patterns that he noticed was that each island had its own main species of finch, and out of those, each habitat had a species of finch also. So the big mountainous regions with lots of tropical forests, mosses, had some group of species, and then the species which inhabited the rocky, lava-strewn coastline were of a completely different variety. He noticed that by the wing colour, complete feather colour, as well as the beak sizes. Beak sizes were quite useful. You could tell what they ate, be it from seeds, nuts, cactuses, ants, berries, blood, or even tool usage, sticks to poke in holes and get lava out of, which does happen. And this, when Darwin got back to the Galapagos, this kind of intrigued him to the extent, well, these are all very different species, but confusingly they are very, very similar in their shape and size and general form to those of the South American species, 900 kilometres away to the east. So why make it, if you're a deity, putting these creatures on Earth, as creationism was the widely accepted view at the time of how life has started. If you're a deity putting these species on these islands, why make them so similar to those all the way over there? Now, he'd previously noted that those birds in Bermuda, about 900 kilometres from the east coast of the USA, could fly from the USA coastline and back again. So why not here? Why not go from South American coast to the Galapagos? And he's saying, well, if some of these birds may have travelled, got caught on the trade winds and travelled to the Galapagos in a small group, they could have settled there and then spread to habitats that suited them, or maybe changed a bit, just enough in their behaviour to find an environment that suited them. But later on in The Origin of Species, 20 years after a lot of thinking and 25 years after the expedition itself, he noticed that actually maybe the species shape, the beak shape, their behaviour, their size may have changed in accordance to the location they ended up at in order to survive. Yeah, he didn't get that until 25 years later, so we can't necessarily talk about what he was thinking at the time, but he did note how they were weirdly similar. He also noted that out of the 26 species of bird which live on the Galapagos Islands, 25 of them were unique, endemic, only ever lived in the Galapagos Islands at all, which also him questioning why so similar yet so different. Now, and of the 15 species of finch and the ones he looked at, and the ground finches, cactus finches, vegetarian finches, noticing that they each had their specialities in terms of food. And did they arrive on the Galapagos and then find the perfect foodstuff for them to eat? He didn't think so. Well, today we can see the power of natural selection, as we now know it is, from the variety of species that are there. What he was effectively describing back then, but he didn't know it, was adaptive radiation. A small group will come to an island from a very far away, distant land, and then there are huge amounts of habitat to colonise, huge amounts of land to colonise. And those few, maybe one or two species in that small group would spread out a little bit, go to different habitats, find different diets, find different behaviours, and adapt to them and change their body shape, size and structure to something that survives better in that area. We call this adaptive radiation. One or two species suddenly has been radiated into 15, in this case, species. And then he got horribly distracted about talking about the frigate bird and doesn't mention the Galapagos finches at all, again, in his Voyage of the Beagle book. I mean, to be fair, the frigate bird is a massive bird with a huge red throat and is frankly incredible to watch. So, yeah, I would get distracted by that too, if you're also just looking at a very small, brown, nondescript bird. But we can also see the level of natural selection and the power of natural selection today, which is acting upon these birds. Because where these small ground finches with small beaks, normally opening small berries or nuts and seeds, compared to the medium ground finch with a larger beak opening larger seeds, where they've once diverged and have two very different beak sizes, they are now coming back together again in urban areas. Where humans have turned up, they bring their food. This is processed food. Brioches and soft breads, chips, pizza, soft meat, stuff that really doesn't require much hunting. You can just sit outside a bin and eat. So why would the finches in urban areas go out and collect food that they know they might be dangerous, with cats and feral dogs that could hunt them, and they might not get much food in the jungle, whereas they could actually get quite a lot of food sitting on the bin? And what we're noticing is, because of all the soft food doesn't require a specialised beak to get at them, the medium and small ground finches, the size of their beaks are actually coming back together again. The smaller one is getting larger, and the medium ground finch beak is getting smaller in terms of their beak sizes. And they're kind of converging back again into a single beak size. Now, my supervisor affectionately referred to this as the brioche finch, as they just eat the processed food and they've got one beak size again. But it does show the pressure of natural selection and how it's affecting these species. And the species is moving with it, and it's moving fast, and it's being capable of evolving with the times. However, other things humans have brought in, the finches aren't quite evolving fast enough. For example, we have brought over the Phalaenus fly. It probably arrived here from the South American western coastline on one of the container ships. What this does is it lays its eggs in the nest of a finch, and then the larvae eat the nasal cavity of the finches, of the baby finches growing, and then they invariably die. Now, with this massive plight on the finches and this incredibly huge prevalent pressure, well, they haven't had to deal with this however long they've been there for, the millions of years that they've been there for. And suddenly this massive pressure is affecting them in 30 years, killing off huge numbers of finches. The fact that the mangrove finch, this beautiful little yellow warbler bird, has now got less than 60 breeding pairs left in the world, and that's it, they're gone. This pressure is moving too fast for the finches, and they can't evolve fast enough, and they're dying out because of it. The adaptations aren't there. But it is part of the larger story of the finches and the evolution on the Galapagos Islands. So, yes, I left that on a little bit of a dour note, sorry about that. But I hope you learned something about the natural history of both the finches, what Charles Darwin thought of that, and also how the evolution is working and acting around the finches, and how natural selection is impacting them. If you have any questions, if you want to contact me, you can contact me through my website, which is thomasland.co.uk. I have a bunch of other stuff on there as well, different documentaries, different bits of writing, different talks. As well as that, go and watch the original one on Lizzie Daly's YouTube channel, there should be a link somewhere. As well as that, I have got the two other parts. Part 2, which is on the Galapagos mockingbirds, and Part 3 on the Galapagos tortoises. Well, thank you very much for watching. Hope you learned something. See you later.